For 10 years, I believed I had lost my daughter forever. After the divorce, our phone calls became fewer, our messages became shorter, and eventually, the silence became louder than anything we had ever said. Then one rainy afternoon, I found a small box hidden in the back of a closet. Inside were handmade Father's Day cards from when she was little. Holding those crayon drawings in my hands, I realized something I had forgotten years ago. Before the pain, there had been love.
Welcome back to God Showed Up Stories. Some of the deepest pain a person can carry isn't something others can see. It's the quiet heartbreak of wondering if someone you love still needs you. Parents know this feeling all too well. Relationships can change. Families can break apart. Time can create distance that once seemed impossible. Sometimes it happens because of divorce. Sometimes because of misunderstandings. Sometimes because life simply becomes complicated. And before we realize it, years have gone by. Many parents quietly carry guilt over mistakes they wish they could undo. They replay conversations, second-guess decisions, wonder if one different choice might have changed everything. If you've ever questioned whether it's too late to repair a broken relationship, if you've ever wondered whether someone has completely forgotten your love, then this story is for you. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who may need encouragement. And comment below. Love never gives up. Never forget this. Sometimes the seeds we plant in love continue growing long after we can no longer see them. All right, let's get into the story.
The divorce wasn't what broke my heart. Losing my relationship with my daughter did. At first, things weren't perfect, but they weren't terrible either. She spent weekends with me. We went out for burgers after her soccer games. We watched movies on Friday nights. Sometimes we'd sit on the back porch talking about school, friends, and whatever happened to be on her mind. Those moments meant everything to me. I believed we'd make it through. I believed love would be enough. But as the years passed, things slowly changed. She became a teenager. Life became more complicated. Schedules got busier. Emotions ran deeper. Phone calls became shorter. Texts became less frequent. Visits became harder to arrange. I kept telling myself it was just a phase. Teenagers pull away sometimes. That's normal. But eventually, the silence became harder to ignore. Weeks passed without hearing from her. Then months. Birthdays became awkward. I mailed cards every single year. Christmas, graduation, every birthday, every holiday. Sometimes I added a handwritten letter. Sometimes just a simple note. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm always here. Most of them went unanswered. Still, I never stopped sending them. People told me to move on. She's an adult now. If she wants a relationship, she'll reach out. But I couldn't accept that. She was my daughter. No amount of silence could change that. Still, late at night, I found myself replaying everything. Every argument, every impatient moment, every time work came before family, every decision I wished I could take back. The guilt became exhausting. I convinced myself that maybe I had simply failed. Maybe I wasn't the father she deserved. One rainy Saturday afternoon, I decided to clean out the hall closet. It was something I'd been putting off for years. Boxes, old photo albums, holiday decorations, things I hadn't looked at in a long time. Near the back of the closet sat a small plastic storage bin covered in dust. I almost threw it into the donation pile without opening it. Something made me stop. Inside were dozens of memories. Old family photographs, vacation souvenirs, school artwork. Then I found a small bundle tied together with a faded blue ribbon. I carefully untied it. Father's Day cards, homemade, construction paper, crayon drawings, tiny handprints, crooked hearts cut out with safety scissors. One card read, "You're the best daddy ever." Another said, "I love you bigger than the moon." One included a drawing of the two of us holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. As I turned each page, tears filled my eyes. For years, all I had remembered was the distance between us. But those little cards reminded me of something I had forgotten. Before the hurt, there had been love. Real love. Joy. Laughter. Bedtime stories. Bike rides. Pancakes on Saturday mornings. She hadn't always seen me as a failure. There had been a time when I was her hero. I sat on the floor, holding those cards for what felt like hours. For the first time in a long while, I didn't just grieve what had been lost. I remembered what had once been real. And somehow, that memory gave me hope. Not certainty. Not answers. Just hope. A few days later, a friend from church invited me to help at a community youth sports tournament. I almost said no. I wasn't really in the mood to be around people. But something inside me said yes. The fields were full of families. Parents cheering. Grandparents taking pictures. Children laughing. Watching them stirred something deep inside me. It reminded me of the years when my daughter and I shared moments just like these. During a break between games, I sat alone on a bench with a cup of coffee. An older gentleman walked over and asked if the seat beside me was taken. I smiled. Not at all. We introduced ourselves. He told me he was there watching his grandchildren play. As we talked, the conversation somehow drifted toward family, toward children, toward relationships. I didn't expect to tell him my story, but before I realized it, I found myself describing 10 years of silence, the unanswered birthday cards, the guilt, the regret, the fear that it was simply too late. He listened without interrupting. When I finished speaking, he nodded slowly. Then he smiled with the kind of understanding that only comes from someone who's walked a similar road. And what he shared next would begin changing the way I saw my daughter. And myself. The older man's name was Richard. He watched his grandchildren laughing across the soccer field before turning back toward me. "I know that look," he said quietly. I wasn't sure what he meant. The look of someone carrying regret for a very long time. I looked down at my coffee. He wasn't wrong. Then he surprised me. I didn't speak to my own son for almost 12 years. I looked back at him. 12 years? He nodded. 12 years. He explained that after a disagreement, both of them became stubborn. Phone calls stopped. Birthdays came and went. Neither one wanted to be the first to reach out. Pride disguised itself as protection. Fear disguised itself as strength. And year after year, silence became normal. I kept telling myself there would always be more time, he said. But time has a way of slipping away while we're busy waiting. His words settled deep inside me. He smiled gently. Then one day, my granddaughter was born. He laughed softly. I realized I had missed so much because I was waiting for the perfect moment. "So, what changed?" I asked. "I stopped trying to win." He looked at me with kind eyes. "I started trying to love." There was a long silence between us. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Love that's given consistently is never wasted. You may not see it today. You may not see it tomorrow. But every birthday card, every holiday message, every prayer, they're seeds. And seeds often grow underground, long before anyone sees them." I felt tears filling my eyes again. Because for years, I had judged my efforts by the responses I received. Richard reminded me that love isn't measured by immediate results. Sometimes it's measured by faithful consistency. Before we left, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't let your guilt rewrite your whole story. You made mistakes. So did I. So does every parent. But don't forget, your daughter also has years of memories where she knew she was loved." Driving home that afternoon, I couldn't stop thinking about those Father's Day cards. The tiny handprints, the crooked hearts, the words she'd written as a little girl. For the first time in years, I stopped asking, "What did I do wrong?" and started remembering, "What did we do right?" A few weeks later, I wrote my daughter another letter, not to explain myself, not to defend my mistakes, not to ask for forgiveness, just to tell her I loved her, that I prayed for her every day, that I hoped she was happy, and that if she ever wanted to talk, I would be there. I mailed it without expecting an answer, because Richard had taught me something important. Love isn't a transaction. It's a gift. About 6 weeks later, something happened I hadn't expected. My phone rang. I almost ignored it because I didn't recognize the number. Then I answered. There was silence. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I heard a familiar voice. Dad? It was her. My heart nearly stopped. She apologized for taking so long. She admitted that the divorce had been confusing, that she had carried hurt she didn't know how to express, that growing older had helped her understand things differently. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Not every wound healed that day. Not every question was answered. But something beautiful happened. The silence ended. Over the following months, we began rebuilding our relationship one conversation at a time. Coffee together, phone calls, birthday dinners, long walks. Sometimes we laughed. Sometimes we cried. Sometimes we simply enjoyed being together again. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. Neither was closeness. But little by little, love found its way back. Looking back now, I don't believe God showed up through a dramatic miracle. I believe he showed up through a dusty box of handmade Father's Day cards, through a grandfather who understood the pain of estrangement, through the reminder that faithful love is never wasted, and through the courage to keep loving, even when I couldn't see the results. Today, those little construction paper cards sit on a shelf in my home, not as reminders of what I lost, but as reminders of what God helped restore. Because I've learned something I'll never forget. Broken relationships are not always broken forever. Sometimes healing begins with one faithful act of love, one prayer, one letter, one phone call, one small seed planted in hope. And sometimes, God is quietly growing something beautiful beneath the surface long before we ever see it.
If this story touched your heart, comment below. Love never gives up. Maybe you're praying for a broken relationship. Maybe you're waiting for reconciliation. Maybe you're wondering if it's simply too late. If that's you, remember this. Keep loving. Keep praying. Keep believing. Don't let guilt convince you that your story is over. God has a way of restoring what seems impossible when hearts become willing. If this story encouraged you, don't forget to like this video. Leave a comment below. Subscribe to God Showed Up Stories. Share this story with someone who may need encouragement today. Thank you for spending this time with us. And always remember, God always shows up right on time.